Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're here. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. With that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time.
All right. Thank y'all so much for watching again. Shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hey, everybody. This is Who Killed Jordan here.
Hello.
How's it going?
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Yeah, my name is Who Killed Jordan. I'm an audio engineer by day, but I'm also an artist by night.
Okay.
I do a little bit of everything. So my main focus right now is engineering. I'm really trying to solidify my business.
Hell yeah.
I'm currently in the process of getting my LLC.
Oh, okay. So you're really digging into it.
I'm really digging in. I'm looking for investors right now. We're trying to open up a studio by 2025. That's really the goal.
Okay.
Time's got to be right and everything's got to make sense, but everything's in the works right now.
I feel you. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Before we officially get into more of what you're doing in the present day, though, what got you started in music initially?
Initially, my story is actually kind of unique. I was just another kid working full-time job, but I ran into a lot of people in the local scene working down in Portland, and just music's everywhere. Anyone who's from here knows that it's all over the place.
Yep.
I started getting really infatuated with stuff like GarageBand and just the simple applications that were provided to me on my phone. And then I started off by making what I like to call beats, but it was really just looping samples that were already created for me. And one day I met a man named Dirty Black, part of Antelope Fishermen, also known as Trunk Mob.
Shout out Fish.
Yeah, shout out the Fish Gang. And I was actually invited to a music video shoot. And when I went over there, there was a local scene, their scene's pretty big. So there was about 10, 15 people ready for the music video. But not only were they ready for a video, everybody's talking production, everybody's talking engineering, everything. It was very new to me. But we actually were sitting in a circle having a conversation with Jimbo Gower. And, he was walking around asking everybody questions about music and their opinions about 90s, 2000s, 80s, 50s, 60s, any part of the spectrum of music.
Yeah.
And I just, felt very comfortable in the environment. So I started kind of speaking my opinions and what my ear hears in this industry and stuff. And I was pulled aside by Dirty Black, whom at that time I did not know at all. I didn't know anybody there, actually. I was a friend of a friend who just happened to line up there. And he pulled me aside at the very end of his event, and he said, "Hey, with all due respect, I think you're doing the wrong thing." I wasn't quite sure what he meant, but he told me he overheard my feedback and some of my opinions based on sound and live production that they were doing, and he told me he thought I had an ear for engineering, and he asked me if I'd ever dabbled in it.
Okay.
I didn't even really know what engineering was at that time. So he invited me over to his house the very next morning and said, "Be here by 7. If you're serious, be here by 7.
Yeah.
And I went there and we hung out for hours and hours on end, physically taking notes because he really wanted to see how willing I was. It wasn't, "Hey, come check out all this fancy gear. Come check out all this stuff I have." It was, "Hey, bring a pen and paper.
Yeah.
You're going to need an eraser as well because we got a lot of work to do." And that's really where everything started. We started off by the basics and then, we met up a couple more times and it just kind of progressed on there. And that's really how I came about into it. And I got addicted. It became like my number one favorite thing to do on planet Earth. And I had no past experience or no influence other than even Dirty Black at that time.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, respectfully, you can't have any past experience until you have present experience.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, like, I think engineering is one of those things where it's like you don't pick it kind of picks you. Yeah, like you definitely you have to acknowledge elements of yourself that just make the most sense in that. And sometimes it takes other people doing it for you.
Absolutely. I don't think if he ever pulled me aside, I don't think my brain would have ever even wandered down that topic.
I mean, I'm sure something would have appeared. You know what I mean? Like, I think that it's one of those things where it's like when you are that way, and that's also, I'm very much in the same realm.
Right.
It's one of those things where it's like eventually it would have appeared in its own way. But yes, having somebody acknowledge it sooner really can be the catalyst for an early experience for sure.
Yeah, absolutely sped up the process, and not even just speeding up the process and knowledge, process and confidence.
Yeah.
As someone who didn't know me whatsoever, not even a friend on Facebook, said, hey, something you did or said struck me to the point where I feel like I can invest in you from this point if you're interested.
Exactly.
The ball's in your hands.
Yeah. Well, that and it's always nice to have people who can understand it conceptually, so that when you start having conversations constructively, like, yes, they may not know a lot knowledge wise, but they're going to retain it and like gain from it.
Absolutely.
When you can like find somebody else who like, speaks your language, so to speak, even if you have to teach them some of it, it can be really appreciative on both ends. And that goes a long way.
Absolutely. And still to this day, I'm very thankful and appreciative, not only to Dirty Black, but to all of the Antelope Fishermen. They've always made me feel like family, and you take a little bit of knowledge from each and every person in groups like that who are very serious and dedicated to what they do. And your brain is just like a sponge. It just absorbs the information. And as long as you have the right intentions, you'll know exactly what to do with it.
Hell yeah. Well, that is super cool. Was anybody in your like immediate household musical at all growing up?
Not at all.
Okay, so you were like first generation musician, respectfully?
Yeah, there was no musicians in my family, but looking far back, my uncles were break dancers. My brother was insane with the number 2 pencil. He was a great artist. So arts of some form, whether it was cooking or painting, whatever, it was there, but never music in specific.
So they're all, it sounds like, passionate people towards the things that attract them.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's, good quality to have still.
Right.
And then I have a couple foundation questions I like to check in with everybody on.
Yeah.
And this first one is one we ask early. It's one we ask often. And it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
Oh my. That's a tough one. It was definitely an Akon album.
Okay.
Most definitely. My dad had one of the cool CD players in the back of the Volkswagen Passat with the 12 CD changer.
Yep. Oh, damn. And 12 of them.
Yeah, it was one of those ones back when everybody was like, what even is this thing? We had a little bit of Akon, Little Troy. I'm huge into Bone Thugs. I love the Bone Thugs and Harmony. So a lot of my dad's.
Yeah, that influence definitely crossed over for sure. Oh yeah, well, I mean that's quality music to be like sharing with your kids. You know what I mean?
He said the very first song I ever sang in the back seat was "Wanna Be a Baller," and still to this day I love that song.
Hell yeah, quality jam.
Yeah.
And then what was one of the first live shows you ever went to? That was like specifically one you wanted to go to.
The very first one I ever went to was in middle school, and it was Macklemore.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the thrift shop era.
Yeah.
I just loved how his confidence, you couldn't shake him if you tried.
Yeah.
Between the scooter and the fur coat and dropping Nikes from strings in the air. I just had to see it live. I was like, I want to see if that confidence goes beyond just the camera. Everybody can get in a video and make it look like they're standing on top of the world. But I had to know if that guy was really that confident on stage, and he was.
Oh yeah, and then some. And then some. And then you find out he's just up the road, technically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when I first moved up here and found out he was in Seattle, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know at the time, but it's very interesting because although that was my first concert, I've actually worked with people today that have toured with him and done production and stuff with him. So it's just like weird how it all ties in. But yeah, definitely the first one I had to see. and it was worth it. It was definitely worth it.
I have a cool Macklemore story I'll have to tell you off camera, but remind me after this.
Absolutely.
But getting back into it, before we officially move into you in the here and now, do you have a defining moment where you decided you wanted to take music more seriously?
Absolutely. I started noticing that it went from just Dirty Black in the very beginning investing in me and saying, hey man, just something about you is just making me think that I need to steer you this way if you're interested. That continued to happen. It was like every person I ran into, and it wasn't about clout, it wasn't about arrogance, it wasn't about pride, it was all about support.
Yeah.
And it just kept falling in my lap, support from every person I met. And I started getting a lot of that feedback from a lot of people. So the fact that I started acknowledging that I had a potential gift or a potential talent per se, I felt like I had to. Like it was speaking to me. No matter how much I went to my job 60 hours a week, that's all that was crossing my mind. And I just knew. I was like, I've never been quite addicted to anything and been willing to do it 12, 15 hours a day.
Yeah.
Never in my life. Nowhere from sports to school. Nothing attracted my attention as much as this did.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's definitely a solid one. And, you know, as a guy who does 1 million hours a day for these kinds of things, I totally get that for sure. But now let's go ahead. Let's get on into you in the present day. And we're going to get a super easy one out of the way. How'd you pick the name?
Oh, this is probably my third name by now, I think.
Ooh, okay. After this, I want to hear what the other two were.
Yes. I picked the name Who Killed Jordan because I ran into some trials and tribulations in the industry, not knowing how to trademark, not knowing how to. And my very first name got copyrighted.
Oh, no.
And that was back before I really knew what I was doing.
Oh, no.
So
What was it?
it was called Dead Tech. That's what I originally went by. And
Good name, too.
it was a great name. It's not even a musician that did it. It's actually a technology company. So I was like, oh.
Did they spell it T-E-K or T-E-C-H?
They spelled it exactly like me, T-E-K-K.
Oh,
Like,
damn.
what are the odds of that?
Damn.
What are the odds of it? Yeah. So Who Killed Jordan was, I just realized my whole life I was always hiding from who I was. I was kind of an insecure, quiet guy, confident in public, but behind the scenes I was very much like reserved and like judgmental to myself. So I figured, who killed my original confidence? My real name is Jordan.
Okay.
So who killed that guy? Who made that guy feel like he had to go into hiding? So that's where that name came from, and it just kind of stuck. And we're locked in for now. I will not get copyrighted. It won't happen.
Well, I mean, you could go and copyright it.
Yeah, I absolutely can. But if someone comes for me, we're going to war this time.
Uh-oh.
I have it dialed in.
Hell yeah. No, I dig that. And it's cool because, first of all, it incorporates your real name, which I was definitely going to follow up with because I've had a couple people on now where it's like they have regular names as their not regular name, but it's still their stage name. I was like, how?
Yeah.
But it's cool. Also, I'm a big fan of like statements as names. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like I just recently had a group on called Who's to Say.
Oh, I like it.
Shout out.
It's a powerful statement. Yeah.
Right? Like it just
to say. I like that.
It's a fun one. They even had the question mark at the end, pulling a little Panic at the Disco with the whatever you call those things that are at the end of words that I've forgotten the word for now. Here we are. But no, it's a fun one for sure. And I appreciate that your real name is in it because I imagine people are able to just gather that and be like, hey, Jordan.
Yeah. And that's anyone who knows me knows that's very uncommon for me. I never have liked to be in the light. I always tell myself I'm
more, I mean, like
Bruce Wayne of engineering.
More, I mean, like if somebody is just like acknowledging you, like just in conversation,
absolutely,
they're not going to have to call you by some obscure name because they're not going to call you Who Killed. You know what I mean? Like they're going to latch onto the name in your name. So it's a cool way to be able to respond to it when you hear it.
Yeah, and you just do by nature when it's your real name. You're like, oh,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, why do you think it's Jimmy's Jambox?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It just rolls off the tongue. It's great.
I also just love alliteration, but we're not here to talk about me. Getting back to you, and we're gonna get into some of your engineering stuff in a moment. But I wanna focus on your music making at the moment.
Absolutely.
And let's go through your process when it comes to getting a track started. What are the things you do in the beginning when it comes to making one of your own songs?
In the very beginning, me personally, when I decide to make one of my own songs, it really starts off with an emotion, whether, it's a great day, horrible day, super medium laid back day. I always have to hyper fixate on my emotion because I truly believe that that's what makes the music is. So rather than avoiding it on my busiest days or my most stressful days, that's exactly when I dial in. So I try to really bring out the pure emotion in everything I do.
Mm-hmm.
So if my head's just like, hey, nothing to talk about, that's just not the day to record for me. I like to record on the days where I have a lot to talk about.
Okay.
And you know, when you can't get those thoughts out of your head, that's my initial start. That's when I walk into the studio and I lock the door and I hide in there for about 12 hours.
Yep. Hell yeah. And do you usually go like beat first and like select one like from somewhere, or do you usually go words first and then try and find something that fits?
I always usually do beat first.
Okay. And do you pick like one you made? Do you have like a small handful from people you know, or do you like go online?
It really depends. I definitely have my local producer, and if we're talking local, it's the only producer I go to. Shout out Token, Turn It Up.
Oh yeah.
That's my guy. But it really depends on my mood, you know, because every producer has their genre and what they like to do. So I always go beat first. If I'm looking for something where I'm like, we're going to put a statement on the beat today, you know, it's a little bit more energetic.
Yeah.
I always call Token. He'll take care of any person who's ready for some 808s and some great tempo, but he's versatile in everything.
Yeah.
So it really just depends. But anytime I can line up with my guy, that's exactly where I'm going every single time.
Oh yeah, I dig that. And then once you get a beat picked out, so you're like, all right, this is it. How do you go about putting the words together? Are you like a mumble into the mic? Do you freestyle? Do you write? Are you pen and paper? Like, what approach do you take from there?
I'm naturally kind of a speed writer. So the first thing I try to do is find the melody line or the chorus. And that's where I start every single time because, in my opinion, the chorus is kind of the central focus of the song because that's the part that's going to repeat itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually try to listen to the beat, figure out what kind of energy it's making me feel like. Does it make me feel a little sad? Does it make me feel inspired?
Yeah.
And then I build my chorus. And then once I build the chorus, that usually ends up translating into the name of the song.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go from there and I just kind of try to dive deeper in between the gaps of what the chorus is about.
Gotcha. Okay. Hell yeah. I dig that. And then once you get a track finished writing, so it doesn't have to be like recorded and released per se, but once you got into the point where you can start memorizing it, how long does it usually take you to feel comfortable enough to perform it?
I've actually never performed before.
See, I was thinking of putting that question before this, but I decided I would roll with that. So, and that kind of segues well into talking more about your music as it exists. So we'll jump right into this because I jumped on ye old Spotify to go check you out. And one thing I did notice is your music goes back to the beginning of this year. It's all 2024.
Yeah.
But respectfully, that's still 9 singles, 2 4-track EPs, and a whopping 18-track album for a full 35 tracks in 9 months, respectfully. And I mean, that you're just pumping them out. And not to mention, and sorry, I'm going long on this, but you also have so many features. Like, I'm only going to list the ones that have been on the show because that list is already insane. But Indo Slim, Sun Tavo, Little Mighty, Solis, Anthony Rivera, Trey Forduce, Figure 8, and your second EP, House of Cards, has what I think is the first officially recognized on Spotify release of Ross Boss.
Ross Boss.
Yeah. Yes. Which shout out Ross Boss and everybody else I just said.
Ross Boss joined my label that I'm starting this year, and I am very thankful for him. He inspires me every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that I inspire him, which is great to see the energy reciprocated. And I have a big shout out for Indo Slim for introducing him to me.
Hell yeah. Hey, same.
I got one call one day saying, hey, I have a very tall guy who's raps.
Oh man, he is so tall. Yep.
And I was like, well, come over.
Yeah.
And he goes, I won't take him anywhere else. I know he needs to come to you.
Hell yeah.
And ever since, Ross is probably at my house every other day. He's already pumped out a whopping over 60 songs that we have unreleased right now.
Yeah.
In 4 months.
Again, he has been in, I mean, y'all can go back and watch his episode after this. He touches on it, but he has like no recorded music. Like that was like the biggest thing is for the longest time, he had very little to like actually experience, but he's been doing it for so long. Yep. And then when we were sitting down and talking, he was like, no, I realized I think I need to go record stuff now. Yeah. And so it was cool to actually hear the recorded stuff.
Yeah.
And like, again, it was unbeknownst to me. So I was actually like, when I was going through your stuff, I was like, oh, this is a vibe. This is a vibe. And I'm like scrolling backwards through everything. And then I come across House of Cards and I'm like,
the Ross Boss.
Oh my God, I know that name.
The Ross Boss.
Yeah. And like I said, I think you have the first official like officially credited recordings on Spotify of Ross Boss.
Yes, and we've made many since. He is coming in hot.
Again,
Portland better be ready. He's coming in hot.
He's got so much talent, and he's been doing it for so long. Like, there was no way when he recorded something it was just going to be like, "Hey guys, here's a single. See you in a month." Like, I'm sure he has cooked up all kinds of things.
Yeah, he went from coming over for sessions to family dinners. He's around a lot.
Hell yeah.
And by far the most versatile rapper I've ever met in my entire life.
Yeah.
First artist I've ever had to tell him, you need to do a little less.
Oh, I could definitely believe that. Yeah,
I'm like, you tame that beast.
Yep.
He did. And don't worry. He knows when to let him untame himself.
Hell yeah.
Which is great. And we have a lot of releases coming that'll expose that. But he's very capable of being a very controlled artist. He knows what he wants and he knows what he's got to do.
Well, he's been in the room with so many people too for so long. Like he is one of those like presences that just like, if not for the fact that he does it so much as a craft, like just osmosis alone has probably brought him every type of understanding.
Yeah.
I am so stoked. We'll have to have you both back for the for when he finally puts out something big.
Absolutely. And he is working on an album currently. He did just release No Ink on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But no one's going to believe it. That is all freestyle.
I mean, I can
100%
believe it.
We're not working layers. We left it raw as possible. We left all the breaths in there. We did. We just wanted it to be like just how he grew up. He's like in the living room, leave it how it is. So we did that. But we have a lot of really high-end production coming from him right now. A lot.
Hell yeah. Well, definitely looking forward to that.
Me as well.
But getting back to you, I usually do this bit where I pick out the most recent track. And, you just like a few days ago came out with Super Flex. And I mean, respectfully, while it is the most recent thing, you also have, just in last month, because now we're in October, New Jays, Meanie Face, Siren, Runaway, and Rolls Royce. All in just September.
Yeah.
So, like, it's hard for me to really pick a most recent.
Yeah.
But, like, I guess I'm more curious to know, of all the tracks you've put out this year, if you had to make, like, a 4-song set, you had to pick 4 that you were going to do. Anybody that was featured on it would be there with you if you wanted it that way. What 4 tracks would you pick?
I would say off top, my first one would be Alice.
Okay.
That one is just me on there. But that was one of the very first hip hop songs that I really was like comfortable on, from vocal range to breath control to everything. I used to do a lot of actually faster, like darker, more grunge rap.
Gotcha.
But I was able to finally tame what I like to say, tame the beast, and really just take a deep breath on the mic. That was the very first song I ever recorded from start to finish with my eyes closed.
Oh, okay.
It was just a different one.
Yep.
And then, of course, I have Grandfather Clocks with Ross Boss. That is one of my favorites. Meanie Face has a special place in my heart.
Yep.
We actually recorded that song, wrote it, engineered it, and shot a music video all in one day, and it was my birthday.
Whoa, happy birthday. Yes. Hell yeah.
And I had just met some of the artists that day. Shout out to Momentum.
Yo,
that
shout
was
out
the
Momentum.
first time I ever met him.
Yep.
And we wrote a great song.
That's
immediately.
a good person to have in the room with you for sure.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
And then I would say the final one has to be Rolls Royce with one of my best friends, but also one of my most inspiring lyricists that I know. He has not debuted yet, but my friend Godly Black. Godly Black.
Hell yeah.
Very versatile, very pure, and there's not a single person that can knock him out of his lane. He just is who he is, and it's perfect.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, now we'll have to hear you do it. Surprise. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. All right.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, that's rad. And thank you for dropping that list with no warning whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Now I want to take a moment though, and I want to talk about new music you're working on, because I'm sure you are. I have to imagine you've probably got like 40 more tracks planned for this year.
At least, yeah.
What can we look forward to, maybe like as far as like, are you changing up your styles a little bit? Are you moving in a direction? Are you kind of like, because your stuff's a little, it's not all over the place, but it's definitely a wide net already. But like, are you moving in a direction? Are we going to get one more album? There
will definitely be an album. I'm actually working on, although I have all those songs out, that was really me discovering myself as an artist, lyricist. But I'm working on my first very, very serious album right now. It's called Weightless.
Ooh.
I'm about a quarter way through it. It's one I definitely can't rush. It's
Yeah.
a lot of heart and emotion on this one.
Well, you don't have to at this point. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You've got plenty of stuff for people to listen to and sink their teeth into. So
Yeah.
you could take all the time in the world for an album.
But I'm converting actually to trap soul.
Okay.
It took me years. I always told my producers, I need high ambience. I need melodies. I need
Yeah.
it to match with insane 808s. And they were like, look here, this is not normally what people ask for. But my producer, Token, he helped me gain producer knowledge because I had there's so many subgenres now that you're like, I don't know exactly what to type in on
Yeah.
YouTube. I don't know exactly. He introduced me to trap soul
Mm-hmm.
because he told me, he said, did you listen to EDM growing up? And I said, no, not at all. And he said, that is so weird. And he just started playing trap soul for me. And he was like, is this what you're talking about? And I just fell in love immediately.
Well, it's funny that you would say that because there is an interesting window of time where EDM permeated more forwardly presented, like what would have been like pop hop,
Right.
Like, not quite hip hop per se, but stuff that kind of skated that line, but was still very much like pop music, like, kind of like later-esque Black Eyed Peas for sure.
Yeah. And I did listen to a lot of that.
Yeah, T-Pain also had elements of it really, really rooted. It wasn't until, I can't even remember the name of the one album. Like the one album that I just didn't love by him was this like overly electronic elements, but like he always had them in there. And as like the 2000s kind of settled in, those sounds really started to introduce themselves in ways, some more forward than others.
They did.
Yeah.
A big inspiration for me, looking back now, I didn't know then until I solidified into trap soul this year, was Wale. I used
Oh, hell yeah.
like
hell
when
yeah.
Ambitions came out, you
Mhm.
know, I as a 25-year-old now, hearing that song now was like, wow, it still to this day gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
And that's when I really knew. And I was like, well, I don't know why my brain couldn't put it together. I think I was too busy experimenting.
Yeah.
A lot of experimenting.
That, and it's hard to realize what sounds are going to be like ones that change things for either you or just like music in general when they're in real time. You know what I mean? Because there's still those elements of the things that were before it and around it. So it doesn't always jump out in the immediate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But
And I
like,
think I knew from the beginning I fought it. You know, I was
Yeah.
like, what else am I capable of?
yeah. Well, and it doesn't hurt when it early on, it's good to try things. You know what I mean? Like if you're like, oh, this is my lane, I'm gonna stay in it. I mean, if you're a virtuoso in that space, yeah, go for it. But like, especially in more current genres now, the biggest thing is not so much variety per se, but versatility.
Yeah.
The opportunity to introduce other elements and make it work. And so that I think is really, and we'll kind of segue into the next question out of this statement, but like the ability to be able to do a handful of things and still have it be a vibe is really kind of the biggest part of current music at the moment. But like I said, that segues well into this next one. Let's zoom out for a moment. Let's look at kind of music as a whole. What are some of the things that are inspiring you right now?
What's inspiring me is that I feel like this new wave of music is nobody's filtering what they're talking about. You know, you go through that state of mind where you're like, I don't really want them to know exactly who I am, but I want to give them a little bit of it, which is, I think, what I was doing when I used to have a name that wasn't exactly my name. It was kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Nowadays, there's just this trend. We're talking about mental health, family traumas, and depression, anxiety, body dysmorphia. From the top to the bottom, we're talking about it. And I love that because at some point in time, I felt like it was kind of put behind the clouds if you were talking about something that was too real.
Yeah.
It's almost like they didn't want it to spread that narrative. But now it's like, it's just wholehearted. Music nowadays, anywhere from gangster rap to indie music to country, is just wholehearted, whether it's anger, sadness, anxiety. They're talking about it all. And I do love that.
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, that's kind of what I was touching on before. There's also, there's just a different type of like reality in music at the moment. I think that before it was a lot of posturing. Now that's almost not frowned upon because it still happens a lot, but like there is acceptance in it. Before, like if you did that, people are like, oh, there's a problem, there's something wrong. Like, why would you do this? What is this, a cry for help? Now it's like, no, these are things everybody goes through in some way, and finding relatability in music, I think, is something that gives as much to the listener as it does to the creator.
Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And one thing I just really love about it is that the community, not only are they talking about it in the music community, they're supporting each other by doing it. You know,
Exactly.
the guy you idolized as a kid who never really showed that side of himself is out here looking at new age artists and going, wow, man, you're doing something that not even us
Yeah.
had the courage to do. For say back in the 90s, you didn't hear a lot about mental health. You know, you had artists like Tupac and other artists who dabbled into it, but
Yeah.
it was kind of an anomaly when they did. Before it was like, let's sell excitement, let's sell structure, let's build guidelines.
And even
now we're breaking them down.
Yeah, and even more so, and this might be an odd take, this is something I thought of as you were saying it. We're experiencing in our time now a lot of artists who we're finding out were problematic. And, no stances on any of them, any direction. But we are learning now that there were a lot. And part of me wonders how much of that could have been avoided if they had been able to acknowledge the things that led them to eventually get to that point. If there had been a space in music for them to be understanding of the problems they had and the ways to fix them.
Absolutely. I actually, when I was developing myself as an artist and really just breaking down all the walls that I built, I started thinking to myself, man, oh man, how I wish my childhood idols in this industry would have spoke what I'm speaking now, because I wouldn't have felt like such an oddball for feeling that way.
Yeah.
But now hearing both people current time and previous supporting the narrative is just, it's very powerful. It's like, I honestly don't even know what to expect as an artist or an engineer in the next 5-10 years. They just keep me guessing, and I love it because it never goes stationary.
Oh man, I am so excited for specifically the next 7 to 10 years.
Oh, me as well.
And I won't dig into it too far, but there is and we could do this a lot more off camera, but I have this theory that the way that music is going to be made, both from the creation source, as far as how people approach the melodic structure, the reintroduction of instruments more frequently, the less controlled and dialed settings are going to come back in a really interesting way, because we now have the addition of all these really cool tools that happened during a time where we were trying to do everything all at once.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of things that are meant for one person to do everything. And then we all realize that doing everything as one person is not the vibe.
It's not the vibe.
So now we have 2 or 3 people using tools that can do 4 or 5 things respectfully. So now we have 2 or 3 people creating a 9-person experience comfortably and having a good time.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be a whole new experience in music once that becomes a little more solidified.
Very excited. Very excited.
But again, it's neither here nor there. Getting back to you, before I wrap up this middle portion, I do want to talk to you a little bit about the production side of things. And I figure anybody who's this far into it, they can stand a little bit of tech talk. Right. So on an engineering platform, first of all, what DAW do you use?
I am a Logic Pro guy by heart.
Okay.
Very interested in Studio One, but we're not quite there yet.
Oh yeah. We're going to dub Ableton over what he just, no, I'm kidding.
No Ableton.
No, but that's cool. When did you start getting into when did you pick your first DAW and start moving into that fully?
I would say about 5 years ago, I was introduced to Studio One by Dirty Black.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. But I bought a Mac. I've always been a Mac guy. And then someone was like, hey, check out Logic.
Yep.
And naturally, my brain was like, love you, Dirty, but I need to switch to Logic Pro. I love this. I don't know. My brain just correlated with it. Maybe it's because I had an iPhone pretty much ever since they kind of came out. I was very prone to Apple products. And I think that's why. But now going back to my roots, I'm interested in Studio One again, which is crazy because that's where I started.
Yeah. No, I could dig that.
Yeah.
And then when you first got more settled into the production side of things, how did you go about learning more about it? Because there's so much knowledge, but until you know what to look for, you don't really know what to look for.
Right. That very first day when I met Dirty Black, that he sped me up years just by spreading his knowledge. Like I said, we took handwritten notes about compression, EQ, noise reduction, decibel control, volume output, and any of the nerdy stuff you could think of. We went over all the nitty gritty stuff. Most people tiptoe into it. He said, nope, I'm going to tell you all the hard stuff that's going to stress you out first. Because once you get past that, it's going to just be fairly smooth coasting once you get past there. So he really sped me up in that part of it. And after that, a lot of hands-on practice.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And what, like, you don't have to give away all your trade secrets, but what is some of your like let's do favorite mic, favorite plugin, and then favorite piece of obscure gear.
Favorite mic, currently I'm using the Newman TLM 103.
Oh, hell yeah. Quality microphone.
For sure say it's my favorite yet, because I've only had a couple. But right now, it's my favorite.
Hell yeah. That is a super strong mic to have.
Very strong mic to have. I got my eyes on some bigger gadgets, but...
Oh, for sure.
You know, the stepping stones.
Always.
My favorite plugin, believe it or not, still to this day, I'm a big reverb guy. I don't know why. I just love that beautiful room space. Probably I would say Valhalla.
Okay.
Valhalla, for what I'm doing current time, Trap Soul.
Yeah.
Brings a level of ambience that is just, you could do a million different things with it.
Hell yeah.
Switch it from a 50s filter to all the way up to a modern filter and just different rooms. And it just has so much to offer. I do love Valhalla right now.
Hell yeah. You should check out one. I don't know if it's still a current version, but you should check out a reverb called Altverb. Or Altiverb.
I think I might have it. I went through a phase where it was just like,
you would
buy it, and it might be buried in the vault.
This is one you would know for sure, but I think when I was looking at it, it was still like $400.
Yeah, so
it was one of the first. Oh my god, impulse response.
Yeah,
reverbs that like actually like they went to every famous place you could think of and recreated the impulse responses. So they didn't have like this sounds like this sound, like they listed the actual place. So like the Taj Mahal, Disney Studio, the like, you know, Abbey Roads, like and when it was they were like a hallway.
Yeah.
Like they like had a picture of the space even.
Yeah. I think so. Full confession, at one point in time on my old computer that I don't use anymore, a friend of mine was very nice enough to plug in a USB drive that had all sorts of plugins.
Yeah.
Who knows where they came from? I know I've dabbled with it, but it pops up a lot, and I definitely know I need to look back into it because I love how accurately they can manipulate the type of reverb and the location of the reverb, and I've definitely done research on it.
Well, impulse response stuff in general, and I promise we're not about to get nerdy, y'all, but impulse response stuff is stuff you should look into just as a science. It's really cool. But also, respectfully, Altiverb, when it was on version 4, was a plugin where I used to have to open up a new project to open it up to put it on something and then export it out back in because it was the most processor plugin in the world. But getting back into it, did plugin what's your favorite obscure piece of gear?
Oh, that's a good question.
And maybe not obscure. What just unlisted? Like it could be anything. It could be interface. It could be speakers. It could be some random tool that you have.
I like the Chaotica eyeball.
Okay, hell yeah, that's a perfect one.
It was a very controversial thing when it first came out because of the price. It was initially like $400 or $500.
Yeah,
and sadly, that's when I bought it. It was worth that much. They're much cheaper now, but it works well. I've recorded outside. I've recorded a 50-foot tall aluminum shop, and it just does wonders. It really makes everything act like a sphere.
Yeah,
and gets rid of the bouncing. It's good for treatment.
Yeah, very much so. It's good for isolation in a degree. And respectfully, even though there are other things that are just like it now, it really does a good job at what it does. I think they used good quality foam on it. I think the build on it is a lot. Like people have imitated it, but there are not a lot that have recreated it accurately.
Yeah, I've noticed. I have some friends, who have suggested, hey, man, that one was really expensive. Because, for example, right now I just switched from a large diaphragm mic to a small. So I have to get a new Chaotica because it doesn't fit anymore.
It doesn't fit. And that was, I think, why the reason some people made other ones, because there are ones that are more designed for every mic now.
Yeah. I've noticed a lot of them, I think, where they lack the same quality as you could tell the Chaotica is very, very charcoal cured.
Yeah.
You could just feel it when you touch it. It almost wants to stick to your hand.
Yeah.
And the other ones feel a lot more like surface foam, like mattress foam. And it really just doesn't have the same effect in my professional opinion. But yeah, the Chaotica continues to amaze me still to this day.
Hell yeah. That is a super solid one.
Yeah.
And then before the official last question, what piece of information would you give 5 years ago you now? Like if you just had to give one key thing, because you got a lot of helpful information from the get, but you still had to learn a lot from that point to now.
Yeah.
What is one thing you would tell your then self now?
It's okay to make mistakes because one day they're going to become more minuscule.
Mm-hmm.
I was always trying to learn too fast to the point where my brain was cluttering and I was burning out. Black eyes, no sleep. Just take a rest. Let your brain take a day off because I put myself through a lot of turmoil and then I realized proper sleep, proper mental health, I could focus more in not only on the artistry, the lyricism, but the engineering as well and just a full perspective. You got to take care of yourself. You got to make sure you're in the right headspace when you're doing what you're doing.
Hell yeah. I love that. All right, now for the final question in this middle portion. And this is probably the densest question in the interview.
All right.
But we talked a lot about your experiences with music, the actions, the reactions. But when it's just you and music, one-on-one, what does music give back to you?
Therapy for me, for sure. I was raised in a great family, but I was also raised in a great family that told me the only way to stay strong is to just ignore it and keep going.
Yeah, tough it out.
Tough it out got me in a lot of trouble as a kid. Mm-hmm. So I'm very thankful for the fact that a lot of the things I want to say to someone or something, sometimes even just the sky, when you don't really even understand what's going on, I can say it in a controlled environment where I'm not lashing out. I'm not being unrealistic. It's controlled venting. That's one thing I love because my biggest obstacle as a kid was time and place. Mm-hmm. I was very known for speaking the truth at the wrong time.
Yes.
So now it's actually taught me not only as an artist, but as a human, that there's a time and place for everything and there's a healthy way to do it. So I'm very thankful for that.
Hell yeah. No, I love that. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to some hypothetical questions. Right. And for these, sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well. But this first one's pretty straightforward. If you could work with any one person, the only requirement is they have to be alive. Who would you want to work with and how would you want to work with them?
I would say in this current state and time, it would be Party Alone.
Okay, hell yeah.
Party Alone.
Hell yeah.
Party Alone and me actually met.
Oh, damn.
And
okay.
got to go bar hopping together. And it was a super cool experience that we could definitely talk about because I could go all day. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. But he is on my list. I was actually just texting him a couple days ago and I said, hey, dude, what's the number? Like, I'm ready to go.
Hell yeah.
So he is on the top of my list right now. Very inspiring. Very inspiring. He pushes a very similar narrative that I push in my music. So,
I mean, great music, dude.
Yeah, great music.
Fan. Big fan.
Me as well.
And then subsequently, and this might be a tougher one to answer, but who's a local artist that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
Three-Way Hef. I need that feature.
Okay.
I need that feature.
Hell yeah.
Three-Way Hef is, he's powerful. Mm-hmm. Everything he does is pre-calibrated. You can see confidence. You can hear the confidence. Just everything he does, it's the right way to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, very much.
I really love his approach. It's so professional and but it's so organic as well.
Yeah.
He's not out there trying to be anybody else. He's being exactly who he is, and that's exactly why it comes off as great as it does.
Hell yeah. No, I love that. Well, everybody, you know what to do. Add them in the comments. Let's see if we can make that happen.
Make it happen.
And then for this next one, like I said before, sky's the limits, and it's kind of literal in this sense. But if you could, well, I guess you haven't really performed anywhere yet. But if you could perform anywhere in the world, and you wouldn't have to worry about crowd access or building stability or power, it was guaranteed the best lineup, guaranteed the best show. It doesn't have to be a venue. It could be anywhere. Where would you want to perform?
It would have to be Madison Square Garden, I think. It would have to.
That's where I would want to do if I could do this anywhere.
I think number 2 would be Coachella because it's outside. But
yeah.
Madison Square Garden is like, that's a little kid's dream.
That is.
Think about it now.
That is the spot. Yeah. Like, it's crazy how even now, now granted, back when we were younger, that was it was a big deal to get there because it was so hard to get there. Now, even still, it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
It is the venue. Now, granted, the Sphere is here now, and I know people keep chatting about that, but that's not Madison Square Garden.
We'll be there in 2 weeks, actually.
Oh, damn. Who are you going to see?
I am going to actually see a live Earth experience of what would happen.
Oh.
We had tsunamis and
Whoa.
super excited. It's for my honeymoon. It's
wifey. Right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Early congratulations.
Thank you. My wifey booked it for me, and I just watched I'm a big UFC guy, so they just did the very first UFC event in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then she surprised me and said, "Hey, we're going to be there in 2 weeks." And I about lost it. So I was
that's rad.
Definitely on my list. I honestly forgot about that. That's so new that I forgot.
There we go. Yeah. Hey, Madison Square Garden is a way better option.
True.
All right.
Get a projector screen, though. Like, I want to see it.
Yeah, very much so. All right. And then to wrap up the hypothetical questions, if you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could have not put out an album in 100 years, they could have put out an album yesterday. Who would you want an album from?
Definitely XXXTentacion. He's my favorite.
Hell yeah.
He's my favorite. Big inspiration for me of just, hey, I am who I am and I'm going to wear it on my sleeve. So I had that one still to this day. That was a hard loss. So he's
very much
easily my number one, probably.
Hell yeah. That's a super solid choice. All right. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. What can we look forward to between, let's say, now and April?
Between now and April, I'm hoping to have the Weightless album done. We've been moving at a controllably fast rate.
Mm-hmm.
I did have to cut Ross Boss off. You already got enough features on there. But I got to get people have the beats, but I want to make sure they come at it slow and calibrated. So I have a feeling that's going to line up faster than I think. So Weightless, that's definitely my next big project.
Hell yeah.
And it's going to be my main focus point of probably all of 2025, to be honest.
Hell yeah.
I'm hoping to do 20 songs.
Okay. I dig that.
Do 20.
Do you have any possible show opportunities in your future?
Right now, yes, I definitely plan on doing it. Where I stray is I want to host my own shows. I want to book the venue myself. I want to pick the lineup, and I want to pre-calibrate something that hasn't quite been done out here. So I've been contacting some out-of-state sources and seeing if we can make something big happen, because I always told myself that when I put the engineering sticks down and I focus on myself as an artist, that I was going to do it the way I saw it in my head as a little kid. So definitely got to be the right place, the right people at the right time, but it's coming.
Yeah. No, I love that. For this next one, go ahead and look straight at the camera. Tell everybody how they can find you.
You can find me, Who Killed Jordan, on all streaming platforms. It's all caps. I will shout out that YouTube loves bringing up Michael Jordan's father. That is not me, and I am not the one who did that. Please search me up on Spotify, Apple Music, Instagram. Those are my main locations, but I will be doing a lot of YouTube content this year, so I look forward to seeing you guys on there.
Hell yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you'd like to put on while you're on here?
Oh, here we go.
Yep.
Indo Slim shouts out, one of the most inspirational rappers in this city. Momentum supported me from the day I met him, literally, and we got anywhere from all of the Antelope Fishermen. I would list you all by once, but there's a lot of you. All of you, thank you all very much for what you do. And I would say Sol Luna as well. Sol Luna showed me love and a good time, and he gave me a great opportunity. So shouts out to him too. But yeah, shout out to everybody from Portland, Gresham, anywhere. Shout out to everybody. Thank you all.
Hell yeah. All right. With that being said, we've got one last question to go. But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
All righty.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation. But what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? So it's a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
That's a good one. I used to be really big into horrorcore. I Want to Die in New Orleans by Suicide Boys.
Okay.
That's a really good one if you want to hear some deep lyricism.
I was going to say, would that be a super deep cut though?
It goes pretty back. A lot of people pick their pretty standardly popular songs.
I guess that's fair.
Everybody likes their singles, but their albums have gold buried inside of them.
Yeah. Okay. I will accept. I was going to say, I feel like, I guess, having listened to them, my opinion might be a little more scared.
Yeah.
But that is if you haven't heard it, that is definitely a super solid rec.
That's a super solid one.
Oh, yeah. All right. With that being said, then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Who Killed Jordan.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all. That's a wrap.
This is a show.
Keep jamming.